Rogue Record.
What's up, everybody? You're listening to Hustle Makes It Happen, a podcast about the grit, the determination, and the mindset that it takes to become a winner. Success is not an accident. It lives outside your comfort zone, in the trenches, where excuses are met by brick walls. So strap in, tighten up, and let's get ready to hustle. What's up, people? What's up, hustlers? Welcome back to another episode of Hustle Makes It Happen, the podcast. Today, I want to talk about discipline. And the reason I want to talk about discipline is, frankly, because I didn't really feel like coming up here and recording this podcast today. It's one of those days where I don't feel like doing anything. I feel like laying around. I feel like sitting on the couch, eating potato chips, watching Netflix. That's what I was doing before I came up here. That's what I want to continue to do today. But if you're going to win, you have to have discipline in your life. Like if you're going to see any level of success, and I've learned this just over the past couple of years, like if you want positive outcomes, it takes discipline, right? People want to talk about motivation. Like, oh, I'm not motivated to do it today. I'm not motivated to go record a podcast. I'm not motivated to go to work. I'm not motivated to go to the gym, whatever it is. Motivation is going to get you started. Discipline is what's going to get you results. So today, whenever I was sitting on the couch eating potato chips, watching Netflix, I got to thinking about what I wanted to talk about. And I said, you know what? This is a good time to talk about discipline and why it's important. So Garrison, welcome back again.
Glad to be back. Glad to be doing this remotely. It's nice. It's a lot easier to be disciplined whenever all you have to do is walk in the office. Don't have to drive 30 minutes. I think this is working out good.
So discipline. Tell me about a time where you've struggled with discipline and why do you think it's important?
Oh, man, there's been many times I've struggled with discipline. When I was in school, it was very hard to be disciplined, especially if I was carrying a high grade in the class and there was an assignment that was not absolutely necessary for me to pass that class. There was a lot of times I thought I'd just be okay with taking that B. And then the discipline kicked in and I was like, no, I have to get my assignment done. I have to do it good. I want to get that A. I want to graduate with high honors, and it really just took the discipline of like, hey, we're not slacking on any assignments because if I slack on one, it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again. And I'll go down that rabbit hole that I know is going to lead me to a place that I don't want to be. And I'm not going to get the results I'm looking for. It was important to me to graduate, with a high GPA, and discipline is the only thing that got me there. The only thing.
Yeah. So you hit the nail on the head, right? And that's exactly why we're having this conversation, because in everyone's life, discipline is a challenge, right? It is difficult to develop the discipline to do the same thing consistently, right? But it takes discipline. It takes an immense amount of discipline to be successful. And whenever I was going through this, I came up with 5 things that I think discipline really helps you do, that helps you get results and grow as a person, right? And the first one you kind of just mentioned, and it's about developing self-control. So whenever you are trying to exercise discipline, what you're really doing is you're telling yourself, you're controlling your own actions and saying, hey, self, go to work today, or go to the gym today, or get off the couch, quit eating potato chips, and go do your damn podcast like you said you were going to do. You know what I mean? It helps you develop self-control. And what that does in turn is it helps you control your impulses. It helps you curb some of your desires, right? If you're being disciplined on a diet, the more you do that, the less likely you are to have different kind of cravings, right? And it helps you control your emotions. And by practicing that discipline, you can develop the habit of self-control, which is going to help you make better decisions, avoid impulsive actions. It's going to help you, it's really just going to help you grow as a person. Whenever you practice discipline, you also develop self-control. So that was point number 1.
Yeah. And, self-control is important in really all aspects of life. That can go from, just like I just talked about, education goals. It can be your fitness goals, like you mentioned. It can be family goals, trying to be more family oriented. And it can even be, religious goals. I mean, any type of goals that you have in your life, you have to have self-control to meet those goals. And that comes from being disciplined. That's how you get that self-control. is by being disciplined, knowing what you have to do, the marks you have to be hitting to get those, to reach those goals, and controlling yourself and like you said, your emotions. And mostly it's a mental game is what it comes down to. I mean, your mental, like controlling your mental, your impulsiveness and having self-control mentally is what's going to drive your actions. And your actions are going to get you the results you want.
Yeah, I think, and that's why it was the first one that kind of came up, is that the self control part is the like cornerstone of discipline, right? You have to have self control in order to have discipline. You can't be disciplined without self control. The second part is what I've found in my personal life is that whenever you're being disciplined or you're trying to develop discipline, uh, what it does for me is it helps me increase my focus immensely. Because if I'm being disciplined, let's say I'm going to continue to use the gym as an example, right? If you're being disciplined about going to the gym, then you focus on what you have to do to go to the gym. Like if you're setting the goal to go every day or maybe 5 days a week, right? If you're setting the goal to go 5 days a week, then what you'll do is you'll prioritize your time, your energy, and you'll really focus on going to the gym. And what that is, that increased focus is how you build discipline. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the 2 points you've mentioned are cornerstones of building discipline. I mean, discipline is not something that just happens overnight. You have to have the focus and the self-control to build that discipline that you have to be successful, really in any aspect of your life. These.
You remember a couple of weeks ago whenever we talked about having time, like going back to that idea in that episode is really just about focusing on what's important and building the discipline to do whatever you have to do.
Right, that and discipline enough to avoid your, like we talked about, your time wasters.
That's right.
Having the focus on your goals so you can remove your focus from your phone if that's what is taking up your time, or Netflix, whatever it is. But yeah, focus is super important. Want to hit point number 3?
Yeah, the next one is about, this is where the habit building comes into personal development, right? It's consistency. So whenever you're being disciplined in something or you're trying to be disciplined in something, what you're doing ultimately is you're developing a set of habits that allow you to continue to be successful, because you're developing self-control and telling yourself either yes or no, whichever you have trouble with, right? Like if it's going to the gym, you might have trouble telling yourself yes, but if it's passing up on a beer or a piece of cake, then you might have trouble saying no, right? That's the self-control piece. Then you're focusing on it. And whenever you do those two things, you get to the third step, which is you start building consistency and you start to develop habits over time. And that's where, after some time, being disciplined really doesn't, it's not that difficult anymore, because you've built this pattern of habit, and the things that were hard to say yes or no to start becoming easier. You've learned how to time manage and you're learning how to focus on what's important. So all the distractors are moved out the way. Now you're kind of in the rut of this thing, and you're building this consistency because you're consistently taking action towards whatever your goal is, even though it's not easy, it's not convenient. And by building that consistency, you're developing these habits that support your personal growth and your long-term success. That's the important part of this, is because by building consistency, you're developing positive habits, and that really is what leads to the long-term success.
Yeah, and something you mentioned in the beginning is, motivation is what's going to get you started, but consistency is the requirement that basically sets the difference between motivation, being motivated, and being disciplined. Is consistency. That's the key piece. You have to have consistency. And it's so easy to relate that to like fitness goals, like you've been mentioning. If you're motivated and you go and you hit a little 30-day diet and a 30-day workout plan, that might be great for 30 days and you'll get some good results. But if you hit that goal and then you didn't build consistency in that 30 days, you're going to go back to the same old habits. You're going to say no to going to the gym and yes to eating that piece of cake. You got to have the consistency. And sometime that might require you to dial back some of your goals. If your goals are, or if your requirements for yourself, your goals are a little too strict, sometimes it's hard to be consistent. And you have to be self-aware of that and know when you have to dial back. If you're like 75 hard, it is hard. Sometimes for somebody who's living like a normal life and working a full-time job and has a family and a business to run on the side, it might not be realistic to work out twice a day, to drink a gallon of water, to do, to hit all those marks. I'm not saying it's impossible, but to build consistency, sometimes you have to dial back a little bit and know what's realistic that you can be consistent with. You just have to be self-aware of that.
Yeah, but the consistency, I think the reason that this one is probably the most important part is because it's what gives you success. It's what really builds discipline, and that is consistency, right? If self-control and focus were the cornerstones, then consistency is literally every other block in the building. You know what I mean? It's what actually generates discipline. It's what the whole thing really stands on.
It's the mortar, the mortar that holds the bricks together.
Definitely. The next two really, yeah, I don't want to lump them into one, but the next two I think are very closely related, at least in their outcomes. Number 4 is that by generating discipline in yourself, you're enhancing your mental strength. And what I mean is you prove to yourself over and over again that you can do hard things and that you can be disciplined, and that makes you mentally stronger. You've shown that you can say no. You've shown that you can manage time and focus. You've shown that you can be consistent. And what that does is it develops a bit of mental toughness and resiliency that help you overcome future challenges. That's why I think enhancing mental strength is the 4th piece of discipline.
It definitely is. And, I've got a pretty good example of this at work. We get fed a lot. We have a lot of food. People come in and bring, boudin and cake and all kinds of different food that I know is not good for me and I know I shouldn't be eating. Well, over the years, 5 years of that being the cornerstone of the job I have, I've told myself I'm not going to eat bad food at work. Like, I would rather be at home with my family and friends if I'm going to have like a cheat day and enjoy that with like the people that I, love, not my coworkers, so I've built that in. I've been consistent with that, and I always turn down cakes and boudin balls and all that stuff. And it's built mental strength for me to where it's not even hard for me to say no anymore. And people, they'll be like, well, man, you need to go get you a piece of cake. They got cake in there. Oh, and I'm like, oh, I'm good. I'm good. And it doesn't even bother me at all to say no. I have the mental strength that I know I've said no so many times. It doesn't bother me. I don't feel like I'm missing out. And it really kind of rolls into the next one. Like, you boost self-esteem because I feel good about that now. People, they ask me all the time, like, man, so you eat healthy a lot. You try to stay in the gym and you try to eat healthy and be, and that makes me feel good. Even if they're like picking on me, like, oh man, you're married, man, you can get fat now. Oh, like, okay, that's fine. But I feel good. I'm proud of that.
It started with a little bit of self-control, just like your last your example. It started with a little bit of self-control. You're focusing on your diet, right? So that's kind of your why, right? You're focusing on it. You've done it a bunch. You've built consistency. And what that does is exactly like you said, it makes it easier to say no in the future or to say yes, right? Like if you're consistently going to the gym, it just gets easier to go. It starts becoming part of your life. And then the last part about boosting self-esteem is like you've shown yourself that you can do those hard things. And if frankly, it feels good. You know what I mean? Like if you're focusing on going to the gym and you've gone consistently for a year and you're starting to see results and you're seeing the hard work starting to pay off, you're gonna feel good about that because you've accomplished goals. And whenever you accomplish goals, you develop pride, you get more confidence in yourself. It lets you know that if you did this hard thing, you can go do the next hard thing. And it's just a snowball effect. But it all starts with discipline. And discipline starts with self control. And look, just like I said when we started this thing off, I did not feel like coming up here today, but I have to. You know what I mean? I've said that I had to. We said we were going to do this. We said we were going to be consistent with it. I'm working on developing the self control to tell myself no, right? To tell myself to quit being lazy and go back to work because that's what we preach about on here. And the reason I think that these conversations are so valuable is because we're not any different than anyone else. You know what I mean? You and I and Chase and all the all the gurus on the internet or whatever that talk about motivation and discipline. Jocko is huge on discipline. I guarantee you, if I got him on the phone and talked to him and said, "Are there days where you just don't feel like doing shit?" He's going to be like, "Yeah, yes, of course there are," right? But what's important is that you develop the self-control, you focus on your goals, you be consistent, and what that in turn does is enhance that mental strength. That was number 4, and it boosts your self-esteem. That's number 5, and that's how you win. That is how winning is done. It's through a series of steps, man. And I'm real procedural and process driven. This is a process. It's a roadmap. Develop self-control, focus on what you're doing, be consistent. You're going to develop the habits that start creating discipline in yourself. And that is going to make it easier to be consistent in the future. And it's going to make you feel better when you crush your goals. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. I don't know how to be any more straightforward or plain about it. That's it.
Nail on the head. Let me be clear. And 2 years when we come back and watch this podcast, this is Easter weekend. So that's why we don't want to be here. We have family, and there's a reason. It's not because we actually love doing this. We love the feedback we get. I just had a family member reach out to me the other day and was asking me for advice about getting on a podcast. And he was like, "Man, I watched y'all's last episode and it was awesome." We love that feedback. We love it. It's what keeps driving us to come back. But yeah, man, nothing in life that's worth getting is going to be easy, and it's going to require discipline to reach those goals. The things that you want out of life, you have to be disciplined.
That's it, man. That's the mic drop point right there, baby. You got to be disciplined to win. Discipline is how winning happens. It takes discipline to win. That's it. And I'm really glad that I got up off the couch and came up here today, because we could have put this off till tomorrow and we'd probably thought about something else to talk about. But I'm glad I came up here because I just gave myself the pep talk that I needed. You know what I mean? And that's, we talk about all the time. Doing this podcast is just as much for us as it is for everyone else. That's a fact, because I needed the pep talk that I just gave myself today. I'm glad we did that, bro. I'm glad. It's
yeah, me too. I needed it.
This self-development journey is something else, man. It's fun. It's just like everything else, right? It's got its ups and downs and its peaks and its valleys, but it's worth it.
Keep coming back, being consistent, having the self-control, and building that mental strength. That's what we're here for. My self-esteem has been boosted for the day.
We don't need to belabor this thing and drag it on any longer, guys. That's it. It's another episode of Hustle Makes It Happen, the podcast. Remember, until next time, keep your head down, keep your eye on the ball. Hustle makes it happen, but most importantly, have fun. Peace.
Peace.